let's talk about bourbon trends. Here's 3 to keep your eye on. Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of the Bourbon Hutch. Thanks so much for joining me on this journey through the world of whiskey. So before me today are 3 bottles, and each of these bottles in particular represents a specific trend in the bourbon market. Perhaps you're aware of these different trends and you've been in the bourbon game for a while and you've seen them unfold, or maybe you're new to the game and you're wondering what to look out for in terms of how things develop and what kind of the interesting trends unfolding are right now in 2024. I would say this is a great video where I would love to hear in the comments below what you think of what I'm about to kind of break down, and then also just let me know what trends you've observed. This is going to be a really good food for thought, and I think a really good video just to start some conversation. So first we have Elijah Craig Barrel Proof, and this represents age statements. So age statements are kind of a fluctuating thing in the bourbon world. I believe it was about 10 years ago, you could expect to see a good amount of age statements, especially because bourbon wasn't as big. Since the bourbon boom and since so much interest has been generated in this category, we've seen brands have to lose the age statement because they weren't able to keep up with all the well-aged stocks. Like, they just started going out to consumers, people who are really into bourbon. Then a lot of age statements came back. We saw Elijah Craig Barrel Proof in particular holding strong with that 12-year age statement. Knob Creek 9 got its age statement back. So some good things happened. Now with Elijah Craig Barrel Proof, we've seen the age statement disappear. So last year they announced that they were going to do away with the 12-year-old age statement. The next batch was 11 years and 5 months old. That was the B batch last year. The batch after that was C923, an absolute monster, 13 years and 7 months old and just on a whole nother level. And then this bottle, the first release of 2024, started causing some alarm bells because the age here is only 10 years and 9 months old. It's also 119 proof, which is very low for the series. So what do I make of this? I think with Elijah Craig, right now you're still over the 10-year-old age mark, which means it's still going to be pretty dang good whiskey. Used to be awesome to know that you were going to get a 12-year-old product, no matter what, for around $70 MSRP. Sometimes you'd see batches up to 100, but that number 12 really signified quality, and you could at least know that most batches were going to be pretty dang good, and none of them were going to be necessarily bad. I don't think that we've gone into the territory where Elijah Craig is now bad, but it does make you think, is Heaven Hill struggling to keep up with the aged stocks? They started releasing these single barrel products apart from the regular barrel proof releases that are 8-9-year-old stocks. So I don't know, maybe they're just not going to have as much older stuff. My opinion, when you get to about 4 years old, whiskey, bourbon in general, can be pretty solid and pretty flavorful. 6 to 8 years old, you're really looking at something that could be mid-shelf, really, really solid product and lots of flavor. Then the sweet spot really ends up being kind of 8 to 12 years old for most people, full of flavor, easy to drink, really rich, very nice. Above 12 years old, sometimes you can get the most phenomenal stuff you've ever tasted, but you do start to risk getting a little tannic and oaky for some people's taste. So as long as Elijah Craig can maintain somewhere in that 10 to however old they want to go, I think we're going to be fine. In fact, I think it adds a little bit of variation in flavor that you can experience from these different batches. But let's just say if I see anything lower than 10 years old from Elijah Craig Barrel Proof, my alarm bells, that's going to be strike number 2, and if it's not that good, that might be strike number 3. So it's a little bit on notice right now, but still doing fine. And I think age statements overall, as long as we still have stuff that's in that 10-year-old range from Elijah Craig, as long as we can still get bourbon that's 8 years old plus, we're going to be fine. Okay, next. That was a bit of a ramble. I think each of these is going to be a little bit of a ramble, and that's kind of the point of this video. We're just kind of chatting. So the next bottle I have here is what I actually have poured up. It's Remus Repeal 7. This bottle represents premiumization of the market. So we've got bottles that are coming out regularly, limited releases, whether they're one time only, one-off kind of things, or annual, or multiple times a year. And the price seems to be going up and up and up on those with almost no cap. For instance, last year I picked up a bottle of Wild Turkey Master's Keep. It was the Voyage release, which had gone up from, I think it was like $175 for their premium product, already a good amount, to $275. That's a huge jump, doesn't really match inflation, and that bottle is pretty good, but it's only 10 years old, so it's not like they went to a 20-year-old whiskey and gave us all a kind of a brand new experience. This bottle in particular hovers around that same age too. It's like 9 to 10 years old mostly. There's a little bit of 16 year in there. But previous releases of the series, I'm thinking particularly of Remus Repeal 5, which I've never tasted. But the average age I think on that guy was like 14, 15, 16, somewhere in that range. This is lower age. It's more money. Used to be $80, now it's $100. And the reason I have it poured up today is I just want to taste it and let you know what I think about that price point and the quality ratio going on here. So, cheers. You know, I think it's very good whiskey. I think it is full of rich cherry, good chocolatey notes, and good brown sugar, and some layers of oak. But is it worth $100? I don't know. Maybe I feel like I'm breaking even because it's more special. I've never had part of this series before, but it does start to raise some alarm bells of like, I'm pretty sure there's at least 4 or 5 bottles I have in my collection that are more in that $50 to $60 range that I think could go toe-to-toe with this, if not beat it. I'm thinking specifically of bottles like Rare Breed and Russell's Reserve Single Barrel. I know that Knob Creek 12 can give this a run for its money, and I can get that pretty regularly for around $70, and it's older. So in a sense, I think this bottle represents a conundrum we're all facing all the time, which is these limited premium bottles come out, and you're just no longer guaranteed a quality assurance for those. I mean, if they come out at $100, $150, $200, I think it's just hard to know if the quality is going to match up, especially because taste can end up being so subjective. So what I'm hoping is the bourbon market starts to maybe hit that kind of cap space, and we see the premiumization kind of balance out a little bit and it gets a little bit more reasonable. Who knows if that's going to happen? I mean, as we all keep buying it, we're probably going to continue to encourage that kind of pricing. I feel a little bit bad that sometimes I pick those bottles up because I have the channel, I want to review them, but part of me thinks as a consumer I should just refrain and not let that kind of hype get to me. In any case, I would love to know what your opinion is on the kind of quality, premiumization, and pricing ratio that's going on in the market right now. Okay, last but not least, we've got this bottle of Starlight. It's a bourbon finished in sherry barrels, and this represents the finishing market. Just the crazy number and variety of different finishes that are happening in the bourbon world right now. I love this one in particular. It's a sherry finish. It's awesome. So much flavor. I do have a second bottle from Starlight that's an apple brandy finish, and I'll tell you what, it's not nearly as good, and it's got some kind of acidity and craziness to it that, while interesting, over time I've just not loved it as much. And what I think is so interesting about the finishing category is you can go a little crazy. You can go a little too far. You can come up with almost all of these like totally out of the box finishes, slap them on a whiskey. Sometimes that's happening to younger whiskey, especially like more in that 4-year-old range, and it's giving it a veneer of a different flavor to pass it off. Sometimes it's really, really well done, and sometimes it's just kind of a way to get rid of stocks that aren't as good. I think that's where we hit a little bit of a dilemma, and the trend is just that that's getting more and more widespread, more and more crazy with how many there are, and it's a little bit overwhelming. It's kind of one of those trends that it's hard to navigate as a bourbon drinker, especially as somebody who's new to the game. So what I would say is I'd recommend starting out with 1 or 2 finished products. Try to stay in the range of some sort of flavor profile that you know you're going to like, and just start testing the waters if you haven't already. And then I want to know in the comments below, how far would you go? How many finished bottles should we all have? And the other factor to consider here is a lot of the times that means we're considering a large increase in price because this has used a second barrel of something. So I do think finishing whiskeys is a lot of fun, but I think there's a limit to how many pairings actually add value to our experience as bourbon sippers. All right, everybody. Thanks for coming to my TED Talk and my bit of a rant today to talk about these trends. I just had the idea to think about each of these, especially because A124, I was able to pick it up lately. And I've been thinking about this Remus for a little while since I got it and just where I think it falls quality-wise. But again, would love to start a conversation in the comments below. Let me know what trends you're noticing and how you're feeling about the way bourbon is going here in the early part of 2024. While you're at it, hit the like button on this video, and then consider subscribing to the channel if you haven't already, and joining us for the rest of 2024 and beyond. Till I see you guys again for another video, all I can say is keep drinking good whiskey, look out for those bourbon trends, and cheers.